Hi guys, we are almost done. I'm so excited. Okay, so my capstone paper was on the exploration of teachers' perceptions of integrating high intensity interval training within adaptive physical education. So basically, how I got into this was HIIT has changed my life. It's changed the way I perceive myself, the way I look at life. It's just something that I really enjoy doing that doesn't take a lot of time. And I originally was going to do a different topic about steroids and long-term effects and whatnot, but once I started doing my student teaching last semester, I realized that there was a big disconnect between the way that students run the mile, and so I decided to design HIIT workouts for them to train their body, get their heart rate up, help them get in shape, basically. And when I first started, 33% of one of my classes passed the mile, and by the end of the 12 weeks of doing multiple HIIT workouts a week, I had that percentage go up to about 85% of passing. So my purpose of the study was to basically understand how these teachers perceive the impact of integrating HIIT workouts within their own curriculum, especially adapted physical education. So my research questions, as it shows, are: what are teachers' current understandings of HIIT methodology? What are their perceptions and best practices and challenges for integrating that into an APE class? And what are these perceptions of HIIT methods and increased muscle belly growth, especially in kids with Down syndrome? So this first article is basically just going over what HIIT is. So the purpose was the article, the authors did a study to compare high intensity interval training to moderate intense like continuous training. So HIIT training versus steady state. And they want to do this to see where exactly the students were at, or the participants were at, when it comes to enjoying the two. So participants were 159 male and females. They were between the ages of 14 to 39, and none of them had any mental or musculoskeletal disorders. That way they could perform the workouts. There were 3 scales of interests: feeling scale, physical activity enjoyment scale, and then exercise enjoyment scale. So the result of this is all the scales resulted in different responses, of course, just because not everyone's going to react the same when it comes to different workouts. However, it did show that HIIT had more positive effects. They liked the HIIT better. They had more physical benefits, but they both did show positive and negative mental effects. So application, I concluded that HIIT is maybe a better option for the unfit and obese, just because, going into the next slide, it's very time efficient, and it doesn't require a lot of, or a long time to work. Whereas steady state is, okay, I'm going to do 30 minutes of cardio without stopping. 1, it's boring. 2, it's 30 whole minutes. And a lot of times that's hard for people who are just starting. So with HIIT, it's short work periods and longer rest periods, so it's easier for them. Because it's so time efficient and what it is, it's becoming a preferred way to work out. Like I said, it's mine. That's what I do. After I lift, I go and I do like 10 minutes of HIIT, and I'm dying by the end. But it's like, oh, I only have to do 10 minutes. I can do that. And because there's such short work periods and longer rest periods, it's going to increase the participation rate, especially in APE programs, because students with special needs have a hard time focusing anyways. So they only have to think, okay, I have to do high knees for 20 seconds. So they focus for 20 seconds. And then a lot of times they can, when they're resting for that minute, they can kind of look around and wander and whatever they think about, I don't know. But I from experience, it worked with the AP kids that I had. So I'm going to the next slide. Time is a virtue. And basically this article was to determine whether HIIT was more beneficial than a steady state aerobic exercise. So there were 65 college students. They were all healthy. They signed consent forms, and they were approved by the Institutional Review Board of the University of Illinois. And basically, there was a couple of tests that were done before: a flanker test, which is like a computer-based test, a neurological assessment, and a cardio fitness assessment to measure oxygen levels. So it's kind of like it could be like a stress test on the treadmill. Results were that, which I think is really cool. This is one of my favorite articles. Not only was it in such a short amount of time, but it resulted in the fact that brain function was consistent for the entire 30 minutes after HIIT. Whereas with steady states, and again, steady state is if I were to walk on an incline treadmill for 30 minutes, or I do a 30-minute run without stopping, that's a steady state. With that, it showed that brain function actually decreased within the first 30 minutes. So HIIT brain function stayed the same in 30 minutes. 30 minutes after these people were done, their brain function was up here. But with the steady state, it started to decrease. I personally think just because it's boring, but I just thought that was really cool. So application is, it not only improves cognitive performance, but it's super time efficient. They only did a 30-minute HIIT workout, and yes, they did a 30-minute steady state, but the cognitive improvements and performances weren't the same. So if you are at a time or a time crunch, especially in like middle schools that don't always have block periods, where they have every period every day, which is 35 minutes by the time the kids get dressed and then get dressed out and then get dressed back in in their street clothes. That's not a lot of time to do anything. So a lot of teachers will have them run the mile. Well, why not do like a 10-minute HIIT workout, which is going to do the same thing for their brain, is actually going to increase participation, and they're going to burn more calories anyways out of it. And then they get to do something else on top of that. So not only are they just doing one thing, they get to do multiple things with the same benefit because of this time. It's just so time efficient. So HIIT also increases functionality. So the purpose of this study was to see whether people with Down syndrome have a decline in aerobic capacity, body measurements, and functional ability. So there were 42 participants, 25 men and 17 female. They all had Down syndrome. They needed to be able to understand the test instructions. They needed to be able to complete the AP readiness questionnaire, and they couldn't have any physical limitations, which I thought was kind of interesting, just because people with Down syndrome have hypotonia, which is a low muscle mass. So I don't know if that is considered a physical limitation. I think maybe they're just thinking more so of like they have to be able to perform the exercises. So what they did was they performed a 12-week exercise, and then they didn't train for 3 whole months after. And when these authors and the I don't know what they call them, the people who collected the data, when they checked for changes in body measurements, aerobic capacity, functionality, and what they analyzed it with this specific software program. It was like a statistical software program. But the results of the study included that there were significant changes in aerobic capacity and functional abilities. There were also significant changes with their max volume oxygen intake and max heart rate. So what they're saying was, after this 12-week program, they did really well. And then they didn't train for 3 months. And when they took the beginning before they did the 12 weeks, after the 12 weeks, and then after the 3 months of doing nothing, they saw this. It started here. After the 12 weeks, they increased all of that stuff: aerobic capacity, body measurements, and functional ability. And then after the 3 months, it went back down. So my application is, participants decrease in abilities after not exercising for that long. And it's really important because students have hypotonia, so daily exercise can increase that muscle growth. And it's important that they're getting this daily exercise, because if they're increasing their muscle growth and not having hypotonia, which again is low muscle mass, they're going to avoid injuries. So my methodology, I did a electronic survey that offered the opportunity to gain an understanding of the attitudes and opinions of specific demographic groups by